Yo, it's Elut, and welcome back to the second installation into this series of the Fire Emblem Mount Rushmore. I did a previous video in this. If you haven't seen that, I'll have it in the description. Check that out first. For my personal rankings of my favorite Fire Emblem characters in these archetypes. But today, I've brought someone else into the discussion, and we're going to get objective with it. And some placements here are going to hurt, but some of them are going to hit hard. Feel free to introduce yourself, Mithril Zenith.
Oh, some of these placements are definitely going to hurt. Hello, everyone. My name is Mithril Zenith. I do some tier lists. I do some Fire Emblem discussion content, and I am looking to get this ball rolling. So, I heard I got your invitation, and wanted to do a little bit of research on what's going on first before I just kind of jump in.
Sure.
And so I looked up, okay, well, why those 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore? And it's like, the way that they put it, that I'm just gonna summarize it, is like, the birth of the nation, the growth of the nation, the development of the nation, and the saving of the nation. Because, like, Washington, birth of the nation, Jefferson, growth of the nation, Roosevelt was like the developing or expansion, and then Lincoln was like the saving of the nation because of like Civil War and whatnot.
Yeah.
For people who aren't American, don't worry about it. It's just American history, and it's told through a biased lens because obviously, if you're passionate enough to blow up a mountain into the shape of 4 faces, you're obviously pretty biased.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, we have some biased picks here in your list. So
yeah, we do.
Let's get around to talking about, well, okay. I wanted to have kind of like, I went in with 2 mindsets. One, it's like, okay, if we were to try to be a little bit more objective, who would be on this from like the series as a whole perspective? And then 2, maybe throw in like a couple of little odd works. And so I have 5 to 6 names here for each one of these, and then we can kind of like narrow it down and see if that is worthwhile. A decent number of your picks are probably going to have to come off the wall, but we'll talk about it. We'll see.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Alrighty, you just want to start at the Lords and work our way down then?
Sure, go ahead.
So, for Lords, I think that Ike and Sigurd both deserve their place.
Yes!
Ike being the first main character, non-royal, really standing out, first main character across second across 2 games, because Marth.
Yeah.
I guess that's the big elephant in the room, is that Marth is not on here, and Marth, we may say that he's not super notable or super standout, but he's kind of the archetype, very first one, or you can do that Marth too. That's
I
fine.
like this Marth better for some reason.
Fair enough, he has the gem on him.
Yeah.
He's not little boy Marth. He's basic, but he is like the prototype of which most lords become based off of. A lot of lords kind of make their mark based on taking Marth and being a different twist on him, or a different this or that aspect focused. And so I think in order to really pay homage to Marth, he really does earn his place. Plus, he was the first protagonist across more than just 1 game, because Mystery of the Emblem had 2 books. And so he's up here. I think Ike deserves to be up here too, but you were going to say about Marth?
Oh yeah, well the thing with Marth is, like, I kind of touched on it in the first video a little bit. He wasn't in the first video because he's just not a personal favorite of mine, but I do acknowledge that he's like the George Washington, and like, even if you haven't played Marth's games, everybody knows who he is. Like, he's still iconic outside of Fire Emblem. Like, most people were in like like in the West, were first introduced to Marth and Roy in Smash Bros. Melee. Like, that's a big deal, you know what I mean? So, he's absolutely
Smash Bros.
iconic.
Melee was legitimately the first Fire Emblem game released in the West.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's like, I absolutely, like, give Marth that respect and everything. I'm totally cool with him being up here. I expected to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think that Sigurd is up here, though, as that is definitely a development of the franchise into a lot more serious storytelling, taking a lot more of like the heavier mantle of a main character, truly. So kind of like the growth of the series, if you will.
Sure.
Ike definitely the I guess you could say expansion of the series, but just like expansion of what a lord means. and how that really kind of takes that to the next level type thing, is that he really defines, in that sense, more beyond even what Sigurd does or what most other lords do. What does it mean to be a main character in a Fire Emblem game? And I think Ike really has all those chops, because yes, he's a leader, yes, he's a strong character, but he also doesn't steal the spotlight from the supporting cast as well. He, if anything, shines that light on the supporting cast and allows them to have a bigger role. And I think that that's probably one of Ike's biggest strengths as a character in writing in both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn.
Hell yeah, dude. I figured Ike was gonna be up here. I was also gonna argue hard for Sigurd, so I'm glad you agree with those two.
Yeah. It pains me to say that I don't think Leaf really belongs up here.
I know.
Because it's like, he's the only lord without, like, by default, blue or red hair, or, like, odd-colored hair. He's the most normal of them all. He doesn't get this legendary personal weapon. It's like, okay, yeah, he gets the Bragi sword, but then so does
Yeah, but you give it to
Dermot
Fergus anyways.
Fergus, yeah. and so it's like, I love you, Leaf. I love his story so much, but I don't think he really kind of belongs up here.
Yeah, no, I know.
And not really Micaiah either, I think, is that, yeah, she's notable. She has some, she has some interesting stuff to her, but I don't think that there's really kind of enough to really justify that. It was a very interesting take on a Fire Emblem story, and I'd love to see them kind of do that again. I love the scrappy, small group stories in scale, finding their way into a bigger world. But I am going to give 2 suggestions for who should fill the last seat. One you might like, and one you're gonna hate.
Oh boy! All right, let me have them.
So we have, first of all, is Hector.
Yeah. Okay.
For being the first redefinition of what a lord means. He's like, okay, he's the main lord, but he uses an axe primarily, and he's an armor unit. He's the brash and bold type, before, instead of being kind of like the meek, or not exactly aloof, but like, my friends give me strength type thing. He is the friend that has the strength.
Yeah, okay.
And so there's that. And also First Lord of like, hey, have an alternate tale in this story. First one in the West. Everyone loved Hector. A lot of people loved Lynn. Not very many people loved Elut. They just kind of were like, why is this not Roy? I don't get it.
True!
I think that was most people's first impressions of FE7 when it first launched.
Yeah.
But then the other suggestion that pains me to suggest it is Corrin.
No, come on.
Like, I don't think Corrin deserves to be here, but if we're talking about, like, lords as they are in modern Fire Emblem, self-insert avatars who are dragons and are overpowered and just kind of are chosen ones that do everything. It's like, it really, people complain about, oh, the lord is the chosen one or the main character. It's like, no, that began kind of with Robin, but really with Corrin.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying though. It's like Corrin, like, sort of started the true trend of this kind of main character.
Yeah, and it's only been the last 3 games, so it's hard to really trace that, but it's been 3 games now, and so it's kind of become a definitive feature, and I hate it, and I don't like putting Corrin up here, but I kind of feel obligated to at least make mention of Corrin.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
No, I do get that. On a side note, I fucking hate Corrin. But, like,
fair.
I'm surprised. I mean, maybe I can suggest one just to talk about, or maybe 2.
We can talk about.
We'll just bring him up here. I gotta put Roy up here. We just have to talk about him a little bit.
Bring up the boy.
And Lynn, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Roy, for similar reasons to Marth, is iconic as well because of Smash. But I mean, that does count for something. Like, people that don't play Fire Emblem, they know Marth, they know Roy, they know Ike for sure. And then if you've played, like, more recent Smash games, maybe you know of Corrin or Byleth or whatever. But, like, those are the OGs in, like, the Fire Emblem Smash reps, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if we're going for global, like, knowledge, like people know about these characters, we have to go Marth, Roy, Ike, and then Lynn, Corrin, or Byleth.
Yeah.
Because, like, even though Lynn is just an assist trophy, everyone still knows Lynn.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was gonna say about Lynn is like none of my friends play Fire Emblem. But like occasionally I'll talk about Fire Emblem in relation to something else in the conversation. Like I'll make some kind of general comparison. And the first thing they will always ask is that the one with Ike? Because they know they're talking to me. And if the answer is no, then I swear to God, the second question every time is that the one with Lynn? They don't ask, is that the one with Hector or Elut? Because they don't know those two. But they know Lynn. And I think that's interesting.
Fair. And so I think maybe we do put Lynn up as the fourth head then and drop the rest of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think Corrin has an interesting sort of... Like you had an interesting take with Corrin, but I don't want to see her up there either.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And it's like, Roy kind of has merit, but it's like, Roy's only in one game. Roy is more known for Smash than he is for Fire Emblem.
He is.
Because people who play Fire Emblem people who played Fire Emblem 6 know Roy as the one that you have to, like, carry on Marcus or Shanna's back the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is true. But, like, I will say, so, like, I think if there was, like, an honorable mention for this, like, maybe Roy would be here. But my personal opinion, my perception of the world, I think Lynn is more iconic than Hector. I think in, like, the grand scheme of the like the hardcore community, maybe more people like Hector more. But I think Lynn is more well known. And I like the fact that FE7 was the first game in the West, and for a lot of people, like, Lynn was the first Lord, the first main character they ever met, and that's something to
good old Lynn
know.
Mode. Hey, you're finally awake.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I think that counts for something.
You're finally awake. Is this Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem 7, or Skyrim? Take your pick.
Roll a die. All right, so
but and I think that Lynn deserves a place up here as well. It's like, yeah, we make fun of her, but she's obviously iconic. She's obviously fan favorite for the series. I mean, if we look at then going into the Heroes or Engage, Lynn is obviously the one everyone knows and shouts out. So
yeah, well, I was going to mention Heroes too, because, like, I think I could be wrong on this, but Lynn is, like, in the top 3 characters or something in terms of, like, how many alternative, like, arts they have. It's like her, Camilla, and somebody else.
I haven't paid attention to Heroes in a couple years, but for the longest time it was Lynn and Camilla tied with, like, 6 or 7 when everyone else, the closest, was like 4.
Yeah.
And I think they've slowed down a little bit, but I have no idea, to be honest. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I casually play Heroes, and I have people, like, in my Twitch chat that also play. So, like, they sort of feed me stats every once in a while if it comes up. Yeah. I think Lynn is up to, like, 9 or 10 now, though.
Okay. Is there, like, an Emblem Lynn now, I'm sure?
No, actually. No? Actually, I don't think there's any, like, Emblem special ones yet. There's only, like, 4 Engage characters in right now, which is weird.
Just you wait. There's gonna be a number of them. They're gonna be sick of them for the next year.
Yeah, probably.
But speaking of Camilla, you want to talk about some Wyverns?
Yeah. I knew this was coming. And I hate Camilla.
Camilla is definitely an aspect of the franchise, shall we say. I think of Wyverns as a really tough one, though, because there are so many that are notable that feel exceptional because they're kind of designed to be the exceptional unit. The whole Wyvern archetype is, we made a really overpowered class so we can fill the enemy ranks with it at the late game, but we'll give you 1 or 2 just to kind of give you a taste of that power. And so I think, like, Jill and Har both kind of compete for the same spot, being Path of Radiance and notably Radiant Dawn, but both kind of feel like they earn it. It's hard to really tell who earns it more. Because, like, Har carries most of, Act 3 and Act 4, but but Jill carries most of Act 1 and the rest of Act 3, so...
Yeah, it's weird because, like, Har is objectively, like, the better one, because he has, like, a better start and everything, but Jill is carrying the scrubs, so...
Yeah, Jill is in the chapters that need her most, whereas Har is in chapters that you can do without him. He just makes them so much easier.
Yeah. Did you want to keep both of these up here, or...?
I'm debating on it. We'll come back to it. The other ones that I wanted to add to contention, though, were Minerva.
Yeah,
and
okay.
you mentioned it, but potentially Ivy?
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the paint's still not dry enough on Engaged to really talk about. Ivy is certainly the leader of, or one of the leaders of Engaged discussion.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Is this a good unit? Is this not? What does speed fixing mean, and how does this affect a character?
Yeah, no.
So Ivy is kind of really a linchpin of discussion, but the whole, like, Wyvern archetype, really the whole, like, Minerva archetype, whatnot, is definitely hard to really keep out any of these, almost. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Like, Dean...
I know Dean's not
feels
staying
like the
up
weak
here.
link here, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, he
he's
is.
like in 3 chapters. He's really good for those 3 chapters, but it's like 3 of them.
Wait, in 3 chapters? What do you mean?
Okay, he's in like 5 or 6, but still.
What?
He flies for like 3. He's a Wyvern for like 3 chapters.
What do you mean, bro? He joins at chapter 14.
How long is Thracia? Am I
25
am I just getting,
plus guidance? Yeah,
am
no,
I just
he's
getting it twisted.
I think you
what's
are.
Wrong with me?
No, Dean is
He
around.
joined almost halfway through. Wow.
Yeah, Dean is around.
Okay,
but
well,
I mean, I still
maybe
do.
He does. Like, I don't know. I still don't think he necessarily deserves a spot of being like as iconic.
No,
That's mostly also just because Thracia is less well known.
Yeah. No, I agree. I knew he was coming off the list, but no, he's around, bro. He's a beast. I love him.
Yeah, and so it's like, if we want to debate on level of iconic, then it's like, okay, Minerva honestly has a much weaker hold than Marth, I think, in this category.
I would agree.
She's in 4 games, 5 if you count both books of 3 separately, and in at least 2 of them is a very good unit. Like, she's a very good unit in most of them, but like, definitely in FE1, FE3, and probably still FE11, she's really usable. I don't remember FE12 enough.
FE12, you can, but like, I don't know, like, Pala just does it better, straight up.
Yeah,
like
FE12, you're mostly just using her in order to have her leveled up to be able to, you know, not feel like a dead weight when bringing her into the last chapter if going for the true ending.
Yeah.
Or rather, the all-survival ending.
I think Minerva definitely deserves a discussion here. Because, like, let's be real. Melody is basically a carbon copy of Minerva in some ways. Like a lot of FE6 characters, but...
At the same time, I feel like Melody still earns her spot as being... Like, we talk about FE6 as the game in which you constantly replace your roster. Melody is one of, like, 3 or 4 characters whom you get and never replace.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
And she's constantly in discussions of top 3 units, be it her, Percival, or...
It's either Rutger or Marcus for most people.
Yeah, it's like Rutger, Marcus, her... And then honorable mentions like Percival, Lou, and some other one. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. After that, it gets a little blurry.
The weird people that train Fear or who value Shanna's flyer utility. Look, that's me on both counts, to be fair.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, it becomes the question of like, I think in terms of iconicness, we have to probably bring Ivy off.
Yeah.
I think she's definitely worth a discussion, but she's just kind of too new and not really, like, the legacy hasn't been cemented yet.
Right. And I sort of touched on that in the original video, too. It's like, I really like Ivy. I was surprised how much I liked Ivy. But there's no way to tell for anybody who is going to be talked about as a fan favorite 3 years from now, looking back on Engage. You know what I mean? Like, will she fade into, you know, history? I don't really think so, but you never know. You know what I mean? So I like her a lot. She's gonna end up being like outclassed in a lot of people's minds by her younger sister. That's what's gonna happen. Oh no! I mean, I like Hortensia too, but I know a lot of people do not. yeah. It's anyway. Difference between potentially good combat unit versus mostly solely support unit. Yeah. But yeah, we're not talking about Engage here. That brings a whole different side of discussion. Yeah, it does. We're talking about who do we kick for the spot then, Jill or Har? Because they both kind of sit on the same spot. Do we just have a 5-headed Mount Rushmore here? No, dude. Honestly, like I think Melody belongs here. I don't think in like my right mind I could ever kick Har off of this. No, I would feel so stupid. Master. Yeah, he truly is. Like whether you've played Radiant Dawn or not, everybody knows Har. Yeah. Here's the thing about Jill. I don't have anything against Jill per se, but Jill is the prime example of she actually does need stat boosters to get going, because I used to never give her stat boosters as a kid playing Radiant Dawn, and she never became good. Yeah. Because she just takes more effort than what I was giving her to make her good. So it's like she's not good out of the box. Like, I think the rest of these units are. Yeah, no, that's true. That's a fair point. Like one potential strike against her. And I guess it's one of the things of like, sadly, we know that Camilla's probably staying on if we're talking about iconic and direction of the series and sales figures and heroes and, you know, fill in the blank. Yeah. No, I agree. Like it's hard for me to root against Jill in any way, but I do think Camilla's gonna stay up here, as much as it pains me to say that. The thing with Minerva that's bothering me is, like, I like Minerva. I think she's cool, and she is like the quote-unquote George Washington, but like at the same time, I feel like Jill as a character also does a lot more. That's also very true. And so it's like, do we say that Melody is like the platonic ideal of Minerva and kind of supplants her? Maybe. A little bit, maybe. And then we just leave Jill and Har on here because why not? I don't know. Get angry with us in the comments. Yeah, all right. I'm going with that. I'm going with that. But no, because like, no, I do kind of feel that way though. Like, I don't know. Minerva's like good when you get her and everything, but Melody, like, I don't know. I kind of agree with that. She's like the quintessential version almost of a Minerva. Yeah. And so I think in my mind, I would almost leave Minerva up and take Jill down, but it kind of sucks to say that because, again, it's Jill's up here more for her character than anything else. And yes, she does dominate a significant portion of Radiant Dawn and potentially Path of Radiance if you decide to power her up instead of Marcia. But but it's like Jill is like you kind of have to choose to level her, whereas all the others, like I said, they're great out of the box, and that kind of feels like the definition of a Wyvern is you just pick them up, use them, and you know, doesn't matter if you're just using them as filler or if they're becoming a main slot in your army, they're always good no matter what. And I feel like Jill doesn't quite feel like she's almost good no matter what. Okay. You know, that's just me though. It hurts me, but I think you're right. Because like that is kind of like the point of the Wyvern archetype in general, is like the mid-game joining unit that needs no help, really. Yeah. And they're just beasts, and everybody loves them because of that. And you normally only get like one or two, so they also stand out in that regard. And all four of these do that. Jill, to me, my issue with Jill is that she just always feels like she has a harder time doubling than she should. Maybe that's just the enemies that I was sending her against, but that's just kind of always how it feels. But yeah, because of a couple various reasons, I think that I like this better. And we can also imagine just that Jill is like sharing Har's spot, like just one under or something. Yeah, I'm down for that. Okay. Okay.
Mage slash sage.
Oh boy.
So my list, I have like primarily mages. I don't think I have any like pre-promoted sage on here.
Really? There's one more I want to suggest, but I'll let you go first.
Because we can go with the suggestions. I think that there are some talking points. Yeah, no, now that I think about it, there is at least one. I'm not sure if it's the one that you're thinking of.
Okay.
So first of all, if we're talking about the start of the series, people are going to expect me to say Merrick. Part of me thinks that Linda is actually more notable. Maybe this is just the hot take. This is one of my hot takes of.
I'm using like the first new mystery one just because I like it better.
That's
but
fair.
Continue.
That's fair. This is my hot take because Aura. It's like, yeah, you have Merrick for Excalibur and that's fine, but Aura, especially in FE1, if you ever played FE1, magic doesn't care about power, and magic resistance doesn't exist. So Aura is just a 20 damage button. Meanwhile, the rest of your spells can deal like 13 at most. And here's Lynn with a personal Aura tome that deals 20. She's good in pretty much every game she appears in some capacity. Mostly on the back of either Aura or Nosferatu in like Fire Emblem 3 Book 2 and Fire Emblem 12.
Yeah.
She's more kind of notable iconic in terms of even like heroes and whatnot. I don't know. I just feel like, well, we talk about Merrick and whatnot as like the archetype holder. I feel like Lynn kind of is that definition of just the blasting mage. And if we want to talk about a fast mage, there are two other better examples up here already.
Yeah. No,
that's sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say that's an interesting suggestion. I actually didn't think about her too much. I'm a big fan of her in FE12 though. Nosferatu goes crazy.
Yeah.
I thought she was bad in Shadow Dragon though. Like I'm not speaking from experience. I'm just asking.
Shadow Dragon kind of like it's one of those things of she joins late enough and doesn't have crazy bases. She joins the chapter after Minerva, and so it's kind of hard to be like, well, let's train up another brand new, unpromoted mage. So if you're playing a hard 5, then yeah, you're not necessarily going to get a ton of use out of her. But in like every other version of the game, I think it's just Shadow Dragon specifically on the DS that she struggles in. I think every other game that she's in, she's usually at the bare minimum similar to as good as Merrick. Merrick just has a couple of bosses that he can kill without her.
Okay.
In earlier chapters. That's also just my personal take and personal opinions, though. If we're talking about fast win mages, though, we have Asvel and Lou on here. I'm not sure if Lou necessarily deserves his spot, but I want him to have his spot because Lou teaches you the power of the FE6 Fire Tome at the beginning of the game, and he teaches you the power of the FE6 Air Caliber Tome at the end of the game.
True. I love this kid, man.
What more can I say? He's fast, he's accurate, he has solid magic, and he can get decent bulk and speed as well. So it's like he just kind of feels good to use in general, and kind of feels like the platonic ideal of like this is what like just a general mage should be. Meanwhile, Asvel, no Thracia run without Asvel really feels right.
No, I agree.
You can probably definitely attest to that.
No, it doesn't feel good. I mean, it's not like the game's impossible or anything, but
not the
it
end
feels
of the world,
bad.
But, I mean, Thracia feels like it was designed specifically with Asvel in mind, and I don't think that you can really say that about any other mages, except maybe one or two, which we might talk about.
Yeah. But no, Asvel, like, even with, like, the whole, like, not many people have played Thracia thing in mind, I'm not taking him down. I don't care. Like, yeah, Asvel stays.
It's like, for as niche of a game as Thracia is, that game is just like, that is Asvel's game.
Yeah, no, it is.
If you wanted to say Asvel's the main lord, look. He's not, but I mean, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
feels like he is sometimes. I unfortunately don't necessarily feel we can leave Ced on here.
Okay.
He's notable, he's interesting, but it's like really Forseti that people talk about. And I know that he's good even without Forseti, but it's just like you get him super late in Thracia. You get him like midway through book 2 in genealogy. And it just kind of feels like he does a lot of good stuff, does a lot of crazy stuff, but I don't know. When I'm thinking of mages, and I guess this is also mages and sages, so maybe we can talk about Pent here.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to bring up.
To drop, because it's like, I feel like sages needs to be a different discussion from mages at this point, because I just kind of think about them so differently. Because like, if we're talking about mages, then I have like Lind, Asvel, Lou, maybe Lysithea, and maybe Nino up here. Because I think Nino, in terms of being known, at least within the community, definitely has notoriety, if not infamy.
Yeah.
Dies to second bolting because she dodged the first 88% but gets doubled. That's my Nino experience.
Yeah, no. Nino, like, I agree, Nino is more iconic than someone like Lou or Ced. The thing that hurts me about Ced is, like, I do understand that he's not nearly as available as anyone else in this category right now.
Yeah.
But he for some reason, and maybe it just is partially Forseti stuff, but he just stands out to me so much for some reason. And it might be the relation to Asbel too. But you mentioned it a little bit ago. The other one I wanted to talk about, when I think of Mage or Sage, despite not being a big FE7 fan, I do think we have to talk about Pent.
Pent is kind of like, when we're talking about Wyverns a little bit, the definition of a unit that comes in and just kind of takes his bases and carries the rest of the game on his shoulders. FE7 has a lot of those units, but yeah, Pent is one of the most iconic ones because you see him as a green unit potentially running out of tomes because he just kills everyone on that map.
Yeah, Pent, like, I don't know, like, even, I think that means a lot when I'm not really a big FE7 player so much, but Pent still comes to mind, like, because the starting of this series, I was like, okay, who are the first 4 I think of? And then beyond that, like, who are my favorites? And I try to think about it a little deeper. And although Pent is not, like, a super personal favorite of mine, like, he still pops into my head when I think of, like, magical units.
Yeah.
Like, having, like, A-rank stabs right off the bat and killing everything is very Ced-like. That is very Ced-like.
Yeah.
So
I think, if anything, what's coming to my mind right now is that we need to split the mages and the pre-promoted sages, because there are other pre-promoted sages that are worth talking about. I think Wendell is worth talking about. I think, who else was it? So it's like Wendell, Ced, Pent, and there's someone else. Maybe not Khalil, but I feel like someone.
Maybe not Khalil.
I feel like my brain is like.
But like, okay, I have one for Sage.
For someone else, yeah.
I have one for Sage, which is kind of, this one's kind of weird because it bleeds into a possible archetype that we could talk about later. But Athos is pretty iconic, bro.
Fair.
I don't know.
Archsage, yeah. I guess it counts.
Yeah. And I know he's a Goto too, but
Wendell up there here then.
Oh yeah, okay.
At least let it be complete, because in my mind this is like, and then I'm debating on mages if we like, do we leave Lou up here? Do we even leave Lind up here? Do we care? I feel like I wanted to talk about Lind as like my suggestion if we have to bring someone from the first game. I don't necessarily think she's super deserving of this. So I'd say drop her. Leave Lysithea. I want to talk about her in a minute, but then bring up Nino.
Nino, okay. And Nino and Lou.
Because Nino is definitely one of the most well-known mages, like it or hate it.
No, she is. Absolutely, she is. It's funny that her portrait here is so much smaller than everybody else's.
I know, it's like FE7 just like, we're just gonna shrink everyone down. You only deserve 80%. But yeah, it's like, Nino is that classic, like, when people think Est archetype, they don't actually think Est, they think Nino.
It's true. It should
Because
just be
Est
called
is
the Nino.
actually good in most of her, like decent at worst in most of her appearances. Nino is what people think about when they talk about the Est archetype, and Nino is more like the Miranda archetype. If we're talking about that, let's be real.
Yeah. Miranda's not going up here, by the way.
No. But it's like she comes in late. She has great potential, but is a really low level, really under-leveled, but is still not like incredibly difficult to train. Can be very annoying to train, but not incredibly difficult. Because this is FE7. Enemies aren't that strong.
Yeah.
Most of what it costs you is just your deployment slot. And Nino is the poster child for unit arguments in Fire Emblem.
Oh, yeah.
Is Nino S tier or F tier? Place your bets now.
Yeah, her and Rebecca.
I guess. I hear far more Nino stuff than I hear Rebecca.
True. I think Rebecca was more of like an older thing. Like before certainly. Discussion came in.
Rebecca
really.
Will debate of like, oh, which archer's better? And it's like, yeah, you don't have to use both. You don't have to use only one. You also don't have to use one either.
Yeah, it's like, which one's
FE7.
better?
Archers can't kill Pegasus Knights.
Which one's better? I don't know, man. They're both trash. What do you want?
Exactly. And then let's talk about Lysithea, though, and why I think even though she's, a 3 houses unit, and so, is she really a mage? She definitely deserves to be up here because she's great for noobs with Dark Bikes and Luna. She's great for, like, warp skippers with Warp. She just kind of feels like one of those units that defines 3 houses. I don't think anyone would object, like, people might object to her being, like, top tier, but I don't think anyone would object to her being one of the most iconic units of 3 houses.
Yeah, and the most fun, honestly.
And being that for most people as a mage, even though she only really has, like, 1 or 2, like, actually viable builds that aren't just, like, memes, I think she definitely deserves a head on the mage list, personally.
Cool. I'm down for that. Yeah. It makes me happy.
Fair enough.
So we agree.
We added Sage here.
Yeah, we did add Sage.
We can talk about Mage, you said.
So we agree FE9 Soren does not go up here, right? Let's get that out of the way.
It was tempting, but I think his rough start, the fact that you have to try really hard to not let him die in Chapter 4, kind of keeps him off for me.
Yeah, no, Dude, Soren, I love Soren. I think he's a great character, but he is so unfun. Like, in both games, he's just so unfun. Radiant Dawn, that dude cannot double. His speed cap in Tier 2 is awful. And in FE9, like, I've done so many runs of that game, and I know a lot of people are big Soren fans in FE9, and I get it, but also, like, for me, it feels so slow. Like, the come-up to get him, like, consistently killing things and not dying himself feels so slow, and when you get there, when you finally get him promoted and he's a powerhouse, it's like, yeah, Kieran does that with more movement, though. Jill does that with more movement, though, and flies. It's like, why?
Yeah, I love Soren. Soren was, like, my favorite character growing up for, like, a long time. Just, I loved him. I loved the story. I found out about the secret reveal of who he really was and stuff. And that was, like, pretty naturally, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I just loved that about him, and so that made me want to use him. But yeah, thinking back of actually using him, he just always kind of seems just not quite as good as you need him to be, and I think that, he doesn't necessarily deserve his spot as the premier mage here.
Yeah. That's the only other one that I would, like, really consider talking about. Because, like, I don't know, like, Merrick is fine, but I don't think he's ever really stood out to me that much. Yeah. Or, I mean,
are we going to talk about Lilina I don't think so. I think
No.
Elut definitely generally is better than Lilina for the most part. Lilina might be a little bit more iconic because people like using her as the character, but
Yeah. But no,
Lu's
Lu...
obviously the better unit.
Absolutely, Lu's better. Lu can double in FE6. That's a big deal.
Heck yeah. He can hit in FE6. That's a big deal. Oh, yeah.
Alright, well, I'm happy with the mages, personally. So... I mean, honestly, I'm cool with the sages. Is there anyone that we're missing that we need to talk about here?
Not really. My brain, when I go to the three mages, I'm like Pandreo, Sayla, Khalil, but I'm like, they kind of just do Pent's thing.
Yeah.
These ones are the ones that are like actually different or iconic or reasonable. Like Wendell comes in, he's not he doesn't seem fantastic, but he is because he teaches you this game's all about breakpoints, and I have them. Ced comes in and he's like, hey, I'm gonna, I can solo an entire legion so hard that they aren't even gonna attack me on enemy phase.
Oh, that's fun. That's my favorite.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Ced, my favorite memory is in the very last chapter. I set him with Forsetti against the entire Gelbin Ritter. What was it? Ishtar's squad.
Yeah.
And none of them attacked him because they all had 0 hit because wind is better than thunder.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and the weapon triangle is stacked in that game. Pent is your first introduction to, hey, if you didn't think that pre-promotes were good, watch this green unit solo half a map and then consider you could have that on your army.
Yeah.
And then Athos is really the best version of the sage that comes late game and really just kind of helps you finish the game off. Goto is fine about that, but he's like less notable, I think.
Yeah.
Athos does that and does it well. Goto does it only decently.
Yeah,
He does it fine, but he's like cannot help against the final boss. Athos can, theoretically.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's cool about Athos, however you say his name, is that, like, yeah, he's in the Goto archetype or whatever, and maybe we'll talk about that in an entry later down the line, but, like, I feel like when I saw him in FE7, I'm like, he's gotta be, like, the greatest sage of all time. Like, he has, like, high ranks in every type of magic and stabs, capped stats. This dude's just crazy. You know what I mean?
And he feels it, yeah. And the only weakness that he has is that he has 39 HP, and that's how much damage the Fire Dragon can deal in Hector Hard mode.
Yeah.
But let's go on. We've been talking for a bit. Talk about some Pegasi here.
Sure.
You're all right. So Sita, obviously. Pala. We'll come back to Pala.
Okay.
Vanessa, I think
she's
in my
coming
brain,
down.
Vanessa's more notable here for the fact that she rules the speedrun and draft scene. Is that the Vanessa first pick is like arguably the best pick in Fire Emblem 8 draft. Mecha did the whole it was Don that did the whole breakdown video of how drafts work. I debated Shanna here as just like, but that's even more niche because that's just like, hey, flying utility is a thing, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
And Marcia is like the strongest Pegasus Knight as a whole, outside of maybe FE12 Pala. And then the question has to be had, do we put Est up here?
Just for, like, being iconic, like having a whole archetype named after her kind of thing?
Kind of. Like, I don't think she's, like, a bad unit, but I also don't necessarily know if she really deserves a spot up here in, like, the most notable Pegasi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you said earlier kind of hurts that point if you think about it, because the Est archetype, the most notable one is Nino. So it's like, what is Est really doing? Yeah. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Are there any other Pegasi that you would actually suggest to be up here?
One that I think most people would understand a discussion about would be Florina. And then there might have been one other one. I was
trying to think of more recent games, like Awakening and Beyond, and I just can't think of any. Like
maybe
Sumia,
Cordelia,
I guess, but Cordelia, I don't know.
Cordelia's a
It's just,
fan
like,
favorite, I think.
Doesn't really, but like, fan favorite, but why? You know, it
Yeah.
just like doesn't feel like Pegasus Knight is the reason why Cordelia is a fan favorite. It feels like constantly ignored by Crom is the reason why she's a fan favorite. You know, it's just deep cuts here. Maybe.
Yeah.
Do we put like? And it's like Tanith is interesting, is a cool character. I like the command skill, but I don't think that she's really, you know, Pegasus Knight is kind of hard because it's I think we have the top 4 right here in front of us. Unless you want to like, we could debate Florina or Shanna, or was it Karen and from Thracia? But no, really scratching the barrel.
Yeah. Well, Karen is one of my favorites. She's super interesting because I don't even use her to fight anything ever, and like she's still one of the better units on the team. Like that's crazy.
And I think they all deserve a mention potentially as that sort of thing of flyer utility, of like the unit that you use just to ferry other units around.
Yeah, and I guess I mean like these two can't do that because rescue isn't in those games.
Yeah.
All 3 of these can do that even if they aren't fighting, but these 2 specifically also do that well. Right. Like if you know how to, do that. Like some people find Vanessa kind of hard to use, and I do sort of understand that.
Got killed through a wall in chapter 3.
Yeah.
No, that just my childhood memories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that of them all, we probably already had the list here in front of us. Florina's worth a discussion, worth a mention because of, like I said, just being the Airbus for Hector and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Because you deliberately don't promote her so she can still carry around Hawkeye in like speedruns and LTCs, which is funny.
Yeah. I mean, I do think she'd be like an honorable mention, but I do agree these 4 are pretty good for reasons that I mentioned in the other video as well. The only thing I maybe want to touch on again, because I just have to mention it, about Cordelia. Does Dark Flyer and Gale Force count for anything here? Because, like, any pretty much female unit can do that in Awakening, but it is easier for, like, Cordelia and Sumiya to get that, and that's, like, a meta-defining skill, is it not?
For Awakening, yes, but I feel like because Gale Force broke Awakening, they were so careful to back off on it that it kind of... Not that it necessarily fades from relevance, but because it's like a one-off, one-game thing... I don't know, it feels like a little bit of a stretch to me. It feels like, you could make a point for it, but I don't necessarily think that it really fits.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
It's kind of like, would you consider Tharja in your mage list just because Nosferatu was really overpowered in Awakening when it was actually nerfed from where it was before?
Okay, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I just wanted to mention her. But I mean, hey, I love these 4. These aren't changing. That's fine with me. Means I have good taste.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you're okay, we can talk about Swordmasters.
Yeah.
And
Rutger is staying, but go on.
Rutger's staying. Rutger's definitely staying. We can talk about Navarre, but I think we already mentioned him a little bit. He's like, what does he really do?
Yeah.
He shows up, he's cool, he sets the standard for the archetype, and then pieces out. Or gets benched.
Yeah, or gets benched.
like me and my FE3 Iron Man gets killed by a reinforcement cavalier. So it's like he's iconic for his name and for his killing edge, but not for anything he actually does.
Right.
I think if we want to talk about an iconic, like, powerful Swordmaster, let's talk about Shannon.
Oh, yeah! That's someone I wanted to bring up, because the problem with FE4 Swordmasters to me is, like, if you don't have 10 move plus, I just don't care about you. And Shannon does stand out to me, like, I can't lie, and I think the reason for that is with Aira, or, like, even her kids, really, you don't ever have to use them. They don't ever have to do anything, because, like, when you recruit Aira in Chapter 1, that means you just seized the castle where she is, and she's not going to catch up to anybody. So if you want to use her, you have to make like a conscious effort to slow down. But Shannon comes in Chapter 7, and he's basically soloing a fort all by himself. So you have to use him, and he has the Balmung, and he stands out with, like, what is it, 40 speed? Or whatever it is? 45
something
speed?
Insane. It's like plus 15 speed, plus 25 skill, or something crazy like that. The sword gives him. Yeah, so he's crazy. He's really good. I also think another thing in his favor is that, aside from if you do the Blitz promotion for Seliph, most of the mounted units you have in early Gen 2 are not good for combat.
Yeah.
Like, you have maybe Luharba? Or Luhalva? Whichever one that is. That has the horse.
Yeah.
That one. You have your Lester? Lester?
Yeah, Lester.
Yeah. And
which is
Fee,
Bow Knight, so, yeah.
And Oifi.
Yeah, Oifi's crazy.
Like, they can fight, kind of, but not in Chapter 7.
Yeah.
Like, Oifi's fine, but the rest of them can't do a whole lot, like, by themselves, and so it's like, being a foot unit sucks less because you're just gonna kind of have to wait for your legendary weapon wielders to catch up to be able to take some of these castles. And Shannon is, like, the first true delete button you get. Unless you have, like, a crazy skill proc build of, like, Larce or something.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, because, like, in Chapter 7, like, I always do, like, the promote Seliph by the end of Chapter 6, so that I can book him up there to Shannon, but, like, if you think about it, like, yeah, Oifi's fine. Dermot also is not good, generally speaking. He's not good. So the first, like, good mounted units you get after Seliph and Oifi are Finn, who's on the other side of the map in Chapter 7, and Ares, who comes in, like, after the first fort is seized or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, you get those stronger mounted units, but there's still enough need for your foot units to actually fight and contribute in Gen 2, because the enemy quality is so much higher, especially bosses and boss squads.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, this is just talking about FP4, but I think Shannon definitely deserves a list as, like, one of the top sword masters. And I think the other one that we need to bring up here is Ryoma.
That's fair. That's fair.
The lobster himself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what would Fire Emblem Birthright be without Ryoma? The answer would be
really
it's
boring.
Hard to really say if it would be a better or worse game.
I think it would be
really
worse.
Boring with him, but it's like, at least you get the power fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was the problem I had with Birthright, is like, yeah, he makes the map boring, but he's also so fun. So it's like, what do I do?
But if we're gonna talk about who's, like, the best unit out of the box in those games, it's Ryoma.
Yeah.
It's a sword master.
Yeah, it's a sword master with 1 to 2 range with good growths. Like, what is that?
And then I guess the question then here is, who do we argue off the stage, or do we talk about Kagetsu?
I think nah.
But is Kagetsu even, like, Kagetsu's a sword master technically, but, like, Kagetsu's just a good physical unit in general in Engage.
Yeah. Yeah, Kagetsu, I always make a Wolf Knight anyways. I just like that better for some reason.
Yeah, there are a million different Kagetsu builds. The answer is he's good in anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kagetsu's the new black. It looks good. It looks good on anything. So I guess the question is here, Ival, Karel, and Mia, who stays?
I mean, okay, before we do that, do we have Aira up here as, like, the first Astra unit? The first overkill combat skill unit?
I don't know.
Because, like, I'm not a personal big fan, so, like, I don't feel pressed about it, but I feel like she's maybe bigger in the grand scheme of things than I'm giving her credit for.
She might be, in terms of, yeah, setting the stage for this is what Astra is. But, and so I guess maybe for that, I guess also in that, do we count Stefan as being the secret goat, you know?
Oh yeah, dude, I love Stefan.
Yeah, I love him too, but I don't necessarily want to put him up on this list. It's like I debated him. Do we drop the rest of these people then and put Ira up here? Or do we leave Ivel? Because I think of all these people, it's like Corel is cool, Corel's fun, Corel has the 100% plus growths. But in the grand scheme of things, is he really that, like, he's kind of iconic for people who know, but for people who don't, like, he's also, if you didn't get the secret ending, you don't even get Corel.
Yeah, no, exactly. The only thing I will count in Corel's favor, like I said in the first video, like, a lot of it was just my personal love for his character. I will say, though, I do think Corel's FE7 incarnation to a lot of people is probably more memorable, just because he's around and there's no, like, true ending barrier to actually seeing him. But
Corel's not actually around in FE7. You're talking about Harkin.
Oh, right. My bad. I guess that's true,
too. You have the choice of either the Lowdown or the Brave Sword. Take your pick. I'm picking the Brave Sword.
No, I can't even lie. I'm right there with you, as much as I love this guy. But, okay. I do think, to be fair, Avel being up here is just my Thracia bias.
That's fair. Avel has like a talking point to her with how important she is to the early game of Thracia, but I think because she kind of... Avel's a plot point, not a unit.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
For lack of a better term, without spoilering.
Yeah.
And then Mia is funny because Mia might be up here as best glow-up in the series between games.
True.
Because Mia is one of the worst units in Path of Radiance. I was on Danny's channel a little bit ago talking about horrible units, and Mia's up there, but Lucia is worse.
Yeah, no, she is. She is.
So, but it's like Mia in Radiant Dawn, less important because she's with the Grail Mercenaries, and you have Ike and Har and Titania and a lot of other strong units, but she still manages to stand out and hold her own. And so maybe best glow up. So I guess the question is, in my mind, it's probably between Mia or Ira then for who gets the 4th spot up here.
Yeah. Oh, and we're taking Corel down, right?
Most likely. Yeah.
Okay. I will grab what's her face. Here she is. Because here's the thing, like I get that she is important because, you know, introduction of Astra and all that. But at the same time, like I said, you don't ever have to do anything with her. And in fact, it's kind of tedious to do something with her. It might be fun. You might think it's cool or flashy. But
to some extent,
like, Shannon is there. I don't know.
To some extent, do you have to have, you know, you don't have to do anything with, like, Nino either.
Yeah.
She's still iconic. I guess the question is, do we count, you know, the debate is, do we count best glow up in the series, or do we count the relevance of Astra to Swordmasters in the series?
And then
or do we talk about Shanam as the relevance of Astra accidentally teaches Marita? No.
Where is he? I don't even see him.
Exactly. He's hiding.
He's hiding
from real Shannon.
Yeah, sorry, we got the wrong up here, guys. My bad. But no, like I think
that was funny.
I'm almost debating like because you're saying like, okay, we either pick Aira or Mia, but I'm almost of the mindset.
A fourth, though.
Yeah, I'm almost of the mindset of like Aira versus Shannon. And this is almost like the Melody Minerva thing in a way. To me, maybe that's not the best comparison, but it's like, I feel like Shannon is just a better version of this because of the context in which you have to use him, and he does all the same things and has the holy weapon.
Have Astra?
Yeah, he has Astra, Adept, and the Balmong.
Yeah.
So
screw Era. Let's just put Shannon up here.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, Era fans. Send your angry comments.
Oh yeah, send them. I will read them.
Alrighty. Anyway, do you think this is a little bit more personal favorite and more iconic? Do you have any last minute changes to the list?
I'm actually pretty happy with it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really was. We ended up talking for like a half hour longer than I expected, so
Yeah.
I've got to go and catch my own stream. But
Yeah.
I will see you later, maybe. Thank you all. Thanks for having me, and thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thank you all. I will have Mithril's channel in the description. Go check out his stuff. Hope you enjoyed this series. We might do more of it. You know, whatever. Peace out. Take care. Thank you so much.